All right.
Welcome everybody to the Village of Washingtonville Planning Board regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 23rd. We'll call this meeting to order at 7:10. Let's please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have one item on the agenda today. The applicant is John Dillon, J&J Industrial LLC, 5 Locust Street, application for subdivision, section block and lot 120-1-1, zoning district is I Industrial, proposed use. Proposed lot line change separating Santer Fitness Building and the Orange County Transmissions Building into 2 separate properties as a result of the proposed lot line change being requested.
Hello.
So the last round of engineering comments we have are for, was the August 2020.
So just a little backstory on this. This was submitted, I guess, in 2020, and there was a bunch of variances that were required. So we went, so based on a previous site plan that the client provided, we went to the zoning board for 5 separate variances. That was in February of 2021. So we used the pre-existing survey that they had, and then we, developed the site plan, which was reviewed at one point. Then we went to the zoning board, and we got all of the 5 variances approved. That was in February of 2021. So now the next step logically is coming back to the planning board with a validated survey from a property surveyor showing the new proposed line. So it took a while to get the property survey just because surveyors are like super booked up. So anyway, we got the property survey, and candidly, there's just a discrepancy between the brand new property survey, which was just done, and the site plan that the zoning board approval was based on. So basically, the site plan that we designed this off of had one of the property setbacks as 28 feet, which was a survey. It was based on a survey, and it was at the village from 2008 by another engineer and a surveyor. The new survey has that setback at 25 feet. So that changes, it's really a net zero change, but it still changes several of the variances. So like, we got 5 variances. 2 of the variances now like have a little bit extra area, and then 2 of them have a little bit less just because the line changed. And then the second thing is, basically we just made a very small change to the actual proposed line, different than what was on this. So I guess that's where we're at with this. So I guess logically the decision point is, do we have to go back to the ZBA? Or basically that's where we're at.
So if you move the line, wouldn't that change the square footage of each
Yeah,
parcel?
the square footage has changed. So I would suggest probably it does need to go back to the ZBA just for an updated resolution. And then I guess we'll come back here.
I think at this point, you're gonna get the variances.
Yeah, it's literally like,
At this point, it's administrative almost.
It's
I think
just
it's-
administrative.
We just need a decision from the ZBA
that's
to
updated to match.
the actual numbers that you're gonna be allowed, because under site plan, you're gonna mention those you're gonna mention that decision, and you're gonna want the decision to reference what variances were actually given, the ones that you actually want, not the old ones.
Exactly.
So,
And like I said, of the 5 that we got, 3 of them are less
okay,
aggressive, if that makes sense. Like,
yes, I
Like,
understand.
it was like 33, we were asking for a 16-foot variance, but now, for 3 of them, it's like less.
Mhm.
But for 2 of them, it's like a foot more, or 3 foot more, and a couple square foot more.
I would say de minimis, but I think we can all agree that for purposes of even if it's just purely administrative and record keeping,
It needs to go.
we just need a decision a confirming decision or an amended decision. An amended decision is what I would probably refer it to as,
Yeah,
to the ZBA to match the new survey.
okay,
Unfortunately, this is not uncommon, I've been seeing, because the surveyors are in this area extremely backlogged. So this is not the first one that I've seen, I don't think for this municipality, but one of my others that's had to unfortunately go back because it just doesn't exactly match.
it's not a significant issue.
No.
Honestly, it was in the client's best interest, because if he had paid $10,000 for a survey and the ZBA said no, then he would have paid $10,000 for nothing, whereas in this scenario, we just have to go back to the ZBA, which is a
So
significant action.
it's up to you. I mean, you could go back to the ZBA right now to get your variances cleaned up, but you're still gonna have the whole subdivision process with this board ahead of you.
After,
I would suggest that you start that now, just in case something else comes up that might require the variance, another ZBA input. I have no idea. When we last saw it, a lot of the parking spaces were laid out
yeah,
in the right of way. Your original site has X number of parking spaces per use. If those parking spaces are no longer gonna be on the lot that they're intending to serve, that would be something that required possibly ZBA.
I think that was part of the ZBA.
It may be, my point is just, you already had to go back to the ZBA, you know what the result is gonna be. Rather than risk going back a third time, you might wanna get the planning process underway, but that is your decision.
Yeah, would that just be like updating these areas and resubmitting it for a planning board review
I
and
think the
comments?
major thing is parking.
You have,
Unless you can, I honestly at this point don't remember
It's
what the
it's been a
ZBA's
while.
decision. I know that there was setback, with no question.
That was the-
Obviously, the bulk
yeah.
requirements were the major thing. I don't remember if parking was addressed or not.
I mean, you have a copy of the approved site plan for the overall parcel, right?
Like the previous one?
Right.
Yes, that's like, that gets back
So,
to this whole discrepancy, which is the previously approved one was based on a survey that's not right.
Well, I was forgetting about exactly the property lines, but
Yeah,
everything that mattered on that site plan still matters.
yeah, yeah,
You know, however many parking spaces for the gym, however many for this use, for that
Yeah.
use, and where are they gonna be?
no, I got you.
You've got utility connections on there, water and sewer. Based on the maps, it looked like the sewer or water for buildings would cross other properties.
Yeah, that'd just be like a standard easement scenario.
Right, but we're gonna need to see those easements.
Yeah, I understand that. Okay,
Easements among the two.
Lots 1 and 2, right
With the-
now
With the
it's-
neighbor as well, or no?
No, it's
Okay,
on the parent parcel,
okay, good, okay,
so it
that's
would just
better.
be internal.
Yes, I'll definitely want to review those as part of the application.
yeah.
You've
I was
got a-
just saying, if you haven't reached out to a neighbor, that needs to be reached out to.
No, but those are not
You have a
necessarily.
driveway that runs around the entire building.
That's not necessary for
That's now gonna
ZBA.
need cross easements between the two lots. It's a lot of,
What'd you say about a driveway?
your driveway loops around the whole building.
Yeah, it stays on one lot.
Is it gonna be used by the other lot, though?
No. Like you're talking,
Right now, there's
you're
through
talking,
traffic around the whole site.
you're talking about this driveway?
Can we come down and take a look?
Yeah.
I have it on my computer, I can put it up.
That would be awesome.
That will
plug it
take
right
another
here.
30 minutes.
No,
It's plugging right here.
so this was the driveway, that's one way.
Just
I
gonna
know what
kill-
it is, I had to start
It's
across
all,
the
it's
street.
contained fully on that.
Right, you're
You
There's
know
only a
what
hobby shop.
So if you don't need to
John, and I
cross
missed it.
the right of way easement, that's fine.
Yeah, the easements are just like this.
My
this
point
Is
is
there-
just bringing up that
Is there a light switch that just goes on?
I don't want you to be
That's like
surprised
this.
and go back to the ZBA a third time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I'm.
Would that just be for parking?
Parking spaces requirement, yeah.
Because I think that was part of the ZBA,
Well, hook
which
your
is
laptop up right here.
demonstrating all of the actual verse required.
Okay. So like these spaces?
Yeah, those weren't included,
Okay.
you're not counting.
Having stuff here.
I guess you didn't count these either, but
I think the chairwoman wants to see what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I'm familiar with the lot.
I mean,
It's just-
me
but
too,
the-
but.
I'm understanding,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
area in the back is a common lot. How
It's
you-
actually like two lots
Right.
that are facing opposite
But
directions.
you could cross over and drive around the building.
It might be in
Yeah,
your best interest, and it might be in your client's best interest for purposes of selling the property later, to have those cross easements, because it's gonna make the functionality of those two lots a lot better, if you're able to have those cars cross over into, you know what I mean, for purposes of just ingress and egress even. That's a discussion to have, I guess. with
If
Mr.
you demonstrate you don't need it,
yeah, I mean,
care
like,
less if you have it.
Right.
It's
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
whether you need it, and maybe you need it for the parking. You know, but we're not gonna know until we start going through your site plan.
Yeah, I'm just candidly, I'm not concerned about the parking, there's like a lot of parking spaces. So, and just based on the square footages and like, cause so one thing I'm bringing up is there was an entire planning board session that was that was an attachment in this from like 2014 or something like that, that
Okay.
already went through all the parking for all of the
Well, I
sites
mean,
or
that's
something like that.
why we're gonna be looking at it,
Yeah, yeah.
because it's been a big deal.
It's been a
over the
thing in the
years.
past, yeah. Okay. So,
So I think for purposes of tonight,
do you guys have any part, you wanna see this? I can explain it real quickly.
yeah, go ahead.
Basically, this is the existing site. It's one
That's my
property with two
cell.
buildings on it.
Yeah, it's not even letting me.
And the owners of Center Fitness want to buy the building, but obviously they can't because it's just one lot. So the concept was to just subdivide the lot into two lots. So nothing at all changing at all. It's just drawing a new lot line and dividing it into.
So that back loop remains with Santer?
Yeah, right now it is,
Parking lot.
right now it is Santer's, it's just a one-way
Right.
that comes out this way, and it would remain with them.
So the whole lot is gonna go to center, the whole,
This-
all the parking?
This lot would, it's not necessarily going to be, it's not gonna go to Santer, it's gonna be owned by the property owner now with the
Well,
option
yeah, but
of him selling it in
when
the
you
future.
divide it, it's one property's getting X amount of spots and the other's getting X amount of spots.
Correct.
So if Santer sells it to somebody else and they decide to put up a fence, where's the fence go in the parking lot?
Right, on the property line. All the,
So-
so
so
this
that's
is,
gonna be-
this is the previous parking. So these spots are all attributed to Santer Fitness, which they currently use now. There's gonna be no change at all to the parking. And these spots here are for this,
Public club.
yeah. I mean, you could look at this, it has all of it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, where's the property, the divide, because I read the thing where it said the spots. So,
What's your question, sir?
no, I'm just counting the spots. In other words, it seemed to me that you were balancing out the spots between the two lots.
All the spots that are attributed to these new lots are the exact same spots that are
That they
currently
currently
used. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so those spots are not changing, it's just where the property line is.
Yeah, so, I mean, the map that you're referring to officially for this board doesn't exist,
Which one?
this one right here, because it hasn't been submitted.
So what do you
This
say?
one doesn't.
Yeah, that's our first time seeing that map, that's what he's saying.
This map,
Right.
this proposed map.
Yes.
Yeah, because it hasn't come to the planning board yet.
Right.
It went to the zoning board to get,
Understood.
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But to make sure you don't have problems later, I'm just suggesting you start that process with the planning board then. We're looking to speed it up, not make it.
No, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's just, you're saying that there could be comments related to this.
There could be a lot of questions, yes.
Okay,
And if we answer them easily, no problems, great, off to the ZBA you go.
okay.
But if something comes up where you do need
To change the name.
something different, better to find out before you.
So I guess, is parking zoning or planning? Or both?
Both. Parking,
It's-
go ahead.
It's planning if you meet all the requirements.
Right.
It becomes zoning if you can't meet all the requirements.
Got it. 'Cause I
There are
remember,
certain portions of parking that can be like waived by the planning board, for example, the allowance of using a municipal lot, that's a planning board decision. But you don't have that option in your site plan. Like some of the businesses downtown, the planning board can decide that, you know, a part of their attributable spaces can be in a municipal lot. That's planning board.
Got it.
But if your site plan in an area that doesn't have, you know what I mean, you're not downtown, if your site plan doesn't show the required amount of parking spaces either pursuant to a past site plan or pursuant to current zoning, then you need to go to the ZBA to get a variance to allow you to have that reduction in parking spaces.
Yes, I actually agree with you, what you're saying is validate with the planning board
Mhm.
in finality that the parking is not an issue.
At
So that-
least get
so that
yourself
then-
to the point with the
Yeah.
planning board where you know
Yeah, I got you.
your things.
So another question I just had was like, there were previous variances granted for different sections of this, which I had mentioned, but that was an attachment of this in the past, which is basically like Center Fitness, I guess, when it was built or approved, was supposed to have X number of parking spots, but they got a variance to have 43. So in that, is that variance something that it would
Those run
would
with the,
remain
those
run-
run with the property,
But
and
if
they would
it's being
still be
subdivided?
valid, I believe, under the subdivision unless they become inapplicable. You know, if there's some variance that you no longer need, two buildings on one
Like if you
property.
abandon it. Like if you abandon.
So
the
like,
area.
if this is subdivided, the parking doesn't reset because it's a new thing?
I actually don't, I actually need to speak to the ZBA attorney about that, because sometimes,
I mean,
because if you think of it this way, for 36 North Street, for the non-conforming, the house is already there, but the non-conforming setback, they have to go to get that reconfirmed by the ZBA, even
Okay.
though it's a non-conforming. So when you subdivide a property, you're essentially creating two new properties. Well, you are creating two new properties, so everything that has been existing there needs to be reconfirmed by whatever, by the ZBA and by the planning board. So if you previously got a variance, I would suggest, my gut is, and I'll speak to the ZBA attorney to see how she wants to handle it.
so is there a new ZBA thing?
It's Liz Cassidy.
Because the one who did this was somebody else.
No, that was Chris Kleister. There's a new, so yes, there is a new ZBA attorney.
Okay.
My understanding is that you're gonna have to have that reconfirmed by the ZBA as part of your new site plan. But I can look into that, so I'm glad that we're having the discussion.
It's like a weird thing.
You'll
Yeah,
have
it's like
that.
you don't know which one comes first.
You're also gonna have to confirm all the uses on the property. Are they still the same? Has he switched tenants? Is it now a different use?
Because that was something you had brought up about the hair salon.
I think that was on the pole barn building, wasn't it?
No,
That he had the barber shop?
there's a barber shop here.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the one the car crashed into, isn't
The
it?
hair salon. Yes,
What did I call it?
barber shop.
Oh, no, hair salon.
I mean,
There
they're
was-
kind of different.
I
No,
know
I
there
agree,
was-
they are.
They're different.
They are.
There
They
was-
serve different people.
There was one space on this property that the site plan prohibited any use in.
Which one is that?
I don't remember. It's on the approved site plan that it was going to be a storage space only. If he's now actually using that, there is no parking for it, and that's not a legal use, and that would have to be addressed.
Okay.
The other question I have is what defines a legal parking space? Does each parking space have to have its own egress in and out, or can you park heel toe? Three in a row.
Because it's an automotive facility, there was allowance for stacking cars.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that with, the same thing with the pole barn one, because of the same thing with the
Right.
properties, you're right.
Will that change depending on the tenant use at that center versus the tenant use at the?
Well, the parking from what I understand, Nick said, they're not actually talking about physically moving any painted lines. It would stay as is. It's just a matter of making sure that the spaces dedicated for the automotive business are on the same
Then
property.
there's a tertiary thing, which is, there's this approved site plan from whenever. That's item A. Then there's the actual painted lines,
Mhm.
which are different, just because the lines have been repainted. And then there's, you know, the theoretical new lines that fit differently to accommodate all the spots. You know what I'm saying? So like the previously approved site plan doesn't match what's there now.
Well, I'm gonna assume that at some point, the building inspector signed off on the work completed and gave a CO
For the approved
for the
site.
previous site plan.
Meaning that he was satisfied with whatever the condition of the property was at that time. So even though if it's not a,
So if he agreed at the closeout of construction.
I'm hoping that there was a-
But I'm saying that was in like 2000 and whatever.
I'm hoping that there was the same number of spots, you know, configured.
I think there's more spots now,
Okay.
not less.
So point being is, I think that question definitely needs to be looked into.
Which
I
one?
need to, the parking.
Okay.
Like, in terms of, is there another variance that's needed, and do we need the variances, do we need to well, one, we're gonna definitely need to reconfirm these variances based on your new survey.
Yeah.
Two, are there gonna be variances required based upon old site plans and old existing variances, and then in addition, are there gonna be new variances based upon what are now the requirements for two separate lots? And that should definitely be answered. Have you submitted an SEAF for this? Okay, that's what I thought. So we can,
And then the other question I was gonna ask is like, what is like secret with this? Because when we did this ZBA, there was no secret. Like, we submitted a short form, da-da-da-da, but like.
there wasn't a determination made.
No, like, there was no like, the zoning board didn't
Oh,
declare
definitely.
lead agency and
Yeah.
there was no declaration. I mean, like candidly, it's like a negative declaration, nothing is actually physically gonna happen. But I don't know how y'all wanna handle that. If
So
can,
what,
like,
so
can-
what I
can-
would, so what
Can
I would
like
say,
can like the planning board declare lead agency
That's
with
what I wanna
the
do
zoning
tonight.
board as a subordinate?
that's exactly what I wanna do tonight. I wanna have them declare their intent to be lead agency. We're gonna well, the thing is that we need to declare our intent so that you can prepare your submission as of now, which I would like first to include the parking question to be determined on that. We can send it around to all the agencies, which will include the ZBA. The ZBA will be an involved agency because they have actual decision-making in the process. And once you know, we can declare ourselves as lead agency after 30 days from the notice going out.
Okay, so I have a question, see if this makes sense. Because I agree with this logic of like taking this new survey, putting the parking on it, and resubmitting it to the planning board so we can just discuss what the challenges are.
Yep.
Let's say theoretically there are no challenges. Can the planning board at that time issue a negative declaration? And say there's nothing that has to do with secret before we go to the zoning board, just to knock it out of the way?
If you want to go through the entire secret process, so technically the ZBA isn't supposed to make a decision before some type of declaration is made by the planning board.
They're not supposed to.
They're not supposed to, because
That's why I'm
it's a
bringing it up.
it's a coordinated review.
That's why I'm bringing it up, yeah.
So,
Doesn't that make sense for the planning board to issue that determination before?
so there's two ways that applicants like to do it, and it's depending on how you want to handle it. Most applicants will declare our intent to be lead agency, we'll submit all the paperwork. Usually around the same time, we'll make a referral to the ZBA. I don't think you're ready for that yet, because I don't know what parking variance you might need.
Or if
So if any. So you'll probably need one more meeting for that referral, and we can vote to refer you back. At that time, the ZBA essentially does more or less, they'll flag any issues that they believe is a possible issue with the variances. This might not be necessary for you because you kind of already did that. I lost my train of thought. So most of them go, so most applicants go to the ZBA, and then they'll come back, then we'll finish secra, make a declaration, whatever it is. And if it's a negative declaration, then you have to go back to the ZBA for final decision. In your situation, because you kind of already had your straw poll determination by the ZBA that they're okay with your variances and more or less change now is de minimis, it might be best for you, in your case, for us to declare our intent to be lead agency, finish the site plan review process, finish the subdivision review process, have a declaration, whatever, you know, in this case, and
then
then
just
send
send
you
it to
back
the
to the
ZBA.
ZBA for final decision, and then come back to us for final decision.
I think that makes the most sense.
Because you already essentially got a okay from them for these variances, I mean, they're not so different, and although I might change my opinion if parking becomes like complete, you know what I mean, I
Yeah.
might,
I mean, like,
I'll give you my opinion whether, you know,
I think everything you have on the site plan is addressable.
yeah, it is.
yeah,
It's just a matter of making sure you do everything so that you're covered each step of the way
No, I get it.
and not having to repeat.
No, for sure.
As far as the subdivision site plan, I'll be basically checking to see if you hit all of the bullet points from the approved plan.
From the previously.
Correct. There was a lot of time spent on the parking. So we'll just be looking to see that you're consistent with what that plan had. Whether the strike moves over 5 feet or not, I could care less.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
it was 20 spaces, we're still gonna be looking for 20.
mhm.
No, I got you, like,
Yeah.
I already worked through the parking, it's sufficient. I actually have more spaces than are
I
required.
don't remember if it was the last site plan or the previous site plan, but there was supposed to be a landscape strip installed on the north side of the parking lot, on the Santa Fitness side.
Up here,
Yeah. And I know there's an issue because they paved it right up to the property line and didn't leave room for that planting strip. I believe it was a condition on the last site plan that it happened. I have to double check that.
yeah, I don't know, that's the first time I heard of it.
You're gonna have to be prepared to address it if it is on there.
Alright.
And when you split the parking, how did you, I seem to recall it was reasonably balanced, 40 and 48 or something?
Regarding,
How did it split between the two properties?
currently, Santa Fitness has 43 spots,
Mhm.
and the proposed action, they still have 43 spots, so there's no change to that. For the transmission shop, I'll just go through each entity. So on lot number 2, there's only Santa Fitness. So there's 43 spots that they had before, there's 43 spots required from the previous variance, and what I'm proposing is 43 spots, no change. So on lot number 1, there's 4 operating facilities there. There's a social club, there's a lawn care facility, a transmission shop, and a hair salon. So in the previous site plan, I don't think the hair salon was declared as an active entity. So based on the square footage, that requires 7 parking spots, which I provided. The transmission shop requires 13, which I'm proposing 13. The lawn care facility requires 5, which I'm proposing that they have 6, including several truck parking spots. And the social club requires 15, but I'm proposing that they get 17. So we actually have more spots than is required. And they're just, I guess, over the course of however many times this has been repainted, there are several spots that are actually in the village right of way, which I guess, for all intents and purposes is incorrect, but that's the reality of the situation. So there's actually more parking spots than I'm even showing. There's like 5 more spots that I didn't count because they're not on the property fully. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not super concerned about the parking, but other things you're talking about, obviously.
Yeah. Take a look at the last site plan.
Needs to be confirmed.
Obviously, I don't need new construction details.
Yeah. This is what I'll do. I'm just gonna take this new survey and overlay the new parking on it, and I'll just submit it to you. It'll take 30 minutes, and then I'll just come back and we can discuss it.
Okay.
I think that's the best thing to do.
So, do you think it's best for the board to declare their intent to be lead agency tonight? Just so you know, we're constrained a little bit, which is why I'm hesitant to do it, and I don't know if it matters to you, you can always waive the secret requirement, but from the time that you mail out the notices, we have 30 days to declare ourselves as lead agency, and then 45 days thereafter to act. So I don't know how ready you feel to proceed on that timeline, or if you just want, and obviously we're moving forward on a good faith basis, and if you just want to waive that first 30 days, and then we'll see where we are with the declaration. I'd just rather handle it now than,
Yeah, we can handle it then.
okay, so,
Seeker is obviously not intended to simplify the whole
No.
process.
so based upon the fact that a short EAF was submitted. I would recommend to the board at this time, to declare their intent to be lead agency, and I can prepare, and, direct me to prepare the appropriate notices.
I make a motion that we declare, or attempt to do lead agency on this project.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Take for a vote, Rich,
Yay.
Aye.
and one absent. Anything else we need to discuss? No?
I'll probably have that to you, after Thanksgiving.
That's fine.
All right, there is no public here today, so we will not have public comment. Our next meeting is the 14th of December. That's the end. Motion to adjourn.
I'll try to send it to you before then.
Motion to,
You'll still have to wait 30 days though, so.
Oh, I got you.
All in favor?
What did you say? I could wait?
Also, everybody have a healthy, happy, and
Yes,
safe
happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
You can wait, you could
Grant
be
us
longer.
extra time.
Well,
You grant- Yeah, so
Not
if our,
sure.
if our meeting times, like, if our meeting dates don't coincide, right, like,